Everybody. Hello, hello. Natalie Cutler Welsh here. And I invited my friend Cindy for a conscious conversation. We are going to do an interview with RCR in the new year, but I wanted to just chat because Cindy, you're back from America. I recently, you guys, if you saw it, I was on the Backstage Pass, which is the reality check radio panel last week, a few days ago, and I jumped on, and of course, Paul was asking me about my matchmaking business out the gate, so that was really funny and hilarious, which is going really well, by the way. But later on, when it came around to my turn, so he went to all the hosts and asked a question, and you never really know what he's going to ask, but he said to me, Nat, don't you find that everyone's quite low at the moment? So it's kind of a loaded question and quite interesting. And I said, what do you mean by everyone? So we had a bit of discussion, and I felt like retrospectively, I would have answered it slightly differently. I did say that some people are really struggling. Well, a lot of people are. And so I said a few different things. But what I would have also said is, I feel like everyone is going through something massive at the moment. And that comes in different shapes and sizes of massive, but it's quite monumental in their life. That's what I find. And that's what I didn't say on the radio interview. But Cindy, I thought we could start there with talking about what do you see as the pulse of the people as such right now, because you've just spent 4 months, not 4 weeks, but 4 months in America. And I know all the states are different and all that, but I just would love to hear. And then coming back to New Zealand, you've only been back 2 weeks. You live down near Tauranga, so it's a bit of patch of paradise over there. What is your take on the pulse of the people, or the vibe at the moment, if you were to kind of summarize and comment on that?
Yeah. Well, it's very different over in the US, as you can imagine. I did reconnect to a lot of people, and the majority of them, the theme was based in fear. A lot of them read the New York Times daily. They watch the news, and I would say 90% of them don't like or agree with Trump. And so that was like the big energy. I, on the other hand, am very neutral politically. I'm very excited that someone's stirring the pot. I see him as the archetype of stirring the pot so that we are waking up and we are starting to say, hey, I want to have a voice in what's going on. I don't like that. I want this. And people are having to, start to take some action and start to talk and take their power back. Sovereignty is key. And so I really like what's going on. I see possibilities and opportunities. But what I did do, Natalie, when I did, because I met with a lot of friends. I lived there for 50 years before moving to New Zealand 21 years ago. And um, and I have to say that I reconnected with some of my closest, oldest friends that I call family. And one of the things that I had to draw a boundary around was that there was no hate, there was no conversation around politics, and Trump was not to be talked about.
So did you set that boundary?
I did
Great.
only if that person brought it into my space.
Right.
And if I was in a space that wasn't mine and that happened, I could change the subject. I had choice. But I didn't really allow that frequency to happen. And so they were curious. They said, so why? Why aren't you engaging with this topic that we all, engage in? And this is California. California is very democratic and they're very much anti-Trump over there. And I'm not anti anything really, unless it's really doing some terrible harm. So, yeah, so I had some really strong boundaries. And then they were curious. And then I could talk about the hope that I have and the possibilities and the opportunities that I see opening right now. See, I like transition. We're in transition.
Yeah.
Things are changing and people are uncomfortable. Transition is uncomfortable. I'm in transition right now, moving from one side of the planet back to here. And it is uncomfortable because we don't really know what's going to happen. There's a lot of unknowns. However, when you have the tools and the information to be able to choose your timeline, consciously create your future, it's a feeling, it's a frequency, it's a resonance. And I vibrate at that resonance, well, as much as I possibly can. I choose that. I consciously create with intention and desire and imagination and emotions. And I see a world that has a really great future. And so I'm pretty excited. And I love the fact that I could open up to that kind of conversation. I could change the energy, the topic from hate and fear and this is all going wrong to, but what if it was going right? And look at the possibilities and the opportunities for us right now.
And how did they respond to that?
That's a great question. Nobody pushed back. Most of them were grateful that I changed the energy. Everything just kind of changed. They kind of rose to meet me. You know, when
Mm.
you're in a fear-based environment, you can either drop down to that energy or they can raise up to you.
Yeah.
And they and 100% of the time that shifted in a positive way. And I don't know, I mean, I can think of one person in particular that I saw quite a bit who does read the New York Times every single morning over coffee. And he could spit out everything in the mainstream media. I haven't looked at mainstream media since 9/11. However, he he shifted. I don't know that he's still probably reading the New York Times, but I gave him some things to think about, and his energy really shifted. And he wrote me a really he thanked me quite a bit for the conversation and for the evening together. We had about three or four of them, and they were really good. So I think it went especially well.
And I know you've only been back 2 weeks, and I know you've possibly not know. I imagine you've been a little bit hermit-ish, maybe recalibrating since you arrived back. You might not have been connecting with a lot of people out there. But how do you feel the Kiwis are going? Or just based on what you've seen and the work you do as a coach and all that, like how are the Kiwis going?
You know, the way I explained it when people ask me, well, what's it like over in New Zealand now? I say it's normal. You know, there's no Trump to stir the pot over here. We have politics. We have people that are, pro and con and fear and not trust, but it's a bit more balanced and grounded. And again, I've only been here 2 weeks, and I have been quite hermit-like in the transition. But the people that I've connected with and talking to you and the people that I enjoy being around, there's much more optimism and hope. And maybe those are just the people I hang out with and want to engage with. But I feel that energy is way more grounded than over there in the US.
Well, that's positive to hear because, in the world of RCR, I am known as the positive, optimistic person. However, I'm also quite a realist about things, and I have taken my fair share of confrontational conversations. But I also said in my response to Paul that a lot of it is who you choose to hang out with and what you choose to consume, which is what you were just saying. Maybe every day with the New York Times and the coffee, it's like maybe instead of why don't you go for a walk in the forest or something like that? That will shift energetically what's going on for you as well as what's spinning around in your mind.
Yeah. And ironically, that person that reads the New York Times every day also does 12-day backpacks in the forest. So that's one of the reasons why they're my closest friends, because we do share a lot of the same values. He's just been hooked by the news,
Yeah.
and a lot of people have been.
Yeah. Okay. So if anyone's listening, and please add your comments, add your questions, we're going to come back. We're going to comment in the chat. But if anyone's listening and thinking, I want to be more positive and hopeful, I would love to, as you say, Cindy, consciously create my life and all that, but I've got duties and I've got obligations and I've got expectations and all the things. What are some things that, practices you do or things that you suggest that people can do to kind of move forward or towards creating their own? I feel like I am creating my own future, but I also get a little bit stuck in other people in my life that make it hard because of their views, which are totally opposite to my views. So there's a little bit of that blaming victimy stuff that I fall into. What are some things we can do to be more hopeful and positive?
That's a great question, too. I think the number one thing is to slow things down and just become more conscious of your thoughts, your choices, your reactions versus your conscious responses. It's so easy to get caught up, especially in people that are close to you, like family, and they trigger us. and then we react in something that maybe isn't as helpful as another way. For example, I have my greatest teachers in my life too, of course, and they're going to trigger me. And in the past, I might have defended myself or blamed, or like you said, there's a lot of that icky emotion that is kind of a dance that people like to participate in. And so instead of hitting the ball back and going back and forth in that lower frequency, I think it's really important to just recognize it and then press pause, take that big breath and look at how do I want to consciously respond to this? What feels the lightest? So we can react and engage. That's a choice. It actually becomes a choice then, which is powerful in itself. Or I can change the subject. I can excuse myself and go outside. I can go to the loo and look in the mirror and have a little talk with myself and go into the bedroom and scream into a pillow to get the anger out or whatever emotion you're feeling. We always have choices. And I think when we can stay in choice, we're able to consciously respond to life rather than unconsciously or subconsciously react. I think that's the most important thing.
Well, your timing is impeccable. I had one of those this morning, and it hasn't happened in a long time. I would call it a bit of a blowout, actually. And it was very reactive and polar opposite. And you talked about that dance or hitting the ball back and forth. And at the end of it all, it's like, oh, look at us. We're back where we started, where we always do with whatever the issue might be. It's always the same pattern, habit. Oh my goodness. How do we change? Yeah, and you've given us some really good tools because it's like walk away, yell into the pillow, excuse yourself, have a chit chat in the mirror.
If you're on the phone, say, I got to call you back. There's all kinds of choices. But the key is, before you even go here, is to set the intention that it'll be easy. Set the intention that well, like just having this conversation right now, Natalie, is so great because you're slowing it down and you're seeing the pattern. You know what it's like to be triggered and to react and to get into that dialogue and how it feels. And if you set the intention that you want to stop, and that you want to be a lot more, I don't know, have boundaries, but not be too pushy or blame, but to do it in a graceful manner and to take your power back and just feel into what that would feel like, what that might look like without attachment to a form, because you can't control it. I'm not talking about controlling at all. I'm talking about just imagining how it would be if the next time you were triggered and that other person was triggered, instead of going into the game, the
The
match,
choreographed
whatever
dance.
that
Yeah.
is, what would it be like if you could just kind of stop it in a nice way, in a like a good feeling way, a spacious way that would be respectful for both parties? Kind of like what I would say to my friend who would come into my house and start talk about Trump and all the fear and go, I appreciate where you're at and thank you for sharing. And this evening, when we're together, if we could not engage in that level of conversation, that would be really important to me
And you do make it sound easy.
because I'm honoring them. I see that they're there and that matters to them, and I say that first. And then with an and, not a but,
I heard that. Very
I
intentional.
I include it, and and then I state my desire with so much respect for both parties. I just want to keep it light, and I want to keep it fun.
I think
And
what also helps, and I'm a huge fan of exploring not only language but also tonality in voice expression, vocal expression. And I've always found, I've known you for what, 3 or 4 years. I've always found your voice so soothing. Like I could just listen to you all day, and like maybe I feel like you should record some meditations. You already have. I feel like a lot of it is the delivery. And with me, even though I'm intentionally wearing a dress, you guys, today, like this dress, $10 yesterday at the op shop, it's really, really cool dress. I do desire to be more feminine and I do desire to be less masculine and but I do fall into the warrior and defender. And I don't necessarily mean the defender of myself, but because the discussion was about I had just come from the free speech union event the night before, and the discussion was about sex education versus RSE, like relationship and sexual education. What are they teaching our kids in school? So for me, it came from I got to protect these kids, which is always part of what I do. If you look at my path, and my folk and probably my future. So I find it hard to, back down as such or to be more feminine. So that is something I'm working on. And I love these conscious conversations because it always brings up things. And I'm always willing. I'm a lifelong learner. I think we all are very coachable. Not everyone is. I feel like it's always great to look at how one responds and the habits they naturally fall into, and looking at how we can maybe shift those so we don't just repeat the same thing again and
First of
again.
all, I just want to acknowledge how important it is to have those proactive, go at it, people like you. I mean, I look up to you for how you can so easily stand in your power and take action on those things that matter so much for you. You've made a huge difference in the world, and it ripples out to so many people because of that. So I want to be a little bit more like you. And then maybe you want to be a little bit more like me. And I think it's a yin and a yang. It's both the masculine and the feminine. How can we be, strong and assertive and compassionate, forgiving and understanding? It's taking those, for me, it would be having more courage, taking more action, speaking up and not worrying about what other people think. And with you, it might be, really asking more questions from a place of compassion and listening a little deeper and reflecting back on what they're saying. It's just these skills of the yin and the yang, the feminine and the masculine, and using them both in our conversation.
Absolutely. And okay, first of all, thank you. I'm working on my receiving of compliments. So thank you for acknowledging that. And it was funny when you were explaining, that you want to be more courageous and speak your truth. And I'm like, oh my God, so so easy for me. And then the other stuff that you mentioned, I'm like, oh yes, I do need to listen with more compassion, etc. So spot on. And it brings up some things for me because we're talking today about consciously creating what you want. And I think we need to be aware, like even going, "Ooh, I want to be a bit more like her," is very cool to observe. I was at Wendy V, who you both of us know Wendy. She ran a soul liberation retreat here in Auckland on the weekend. And I went along, yoga, breath work, and a workshop. And she brought up this concept that she'd learned from somebody else, which she acknowledged. And it was all about having a template. And she was talking about your template for your ideal partner, which is very topical for me because of my matchmaking business. But I want to bring that concept into what we're discussing, which is having a template for yourself, like your future, current self, and thinking, I want to be more soothing and more like grounded and more calm, just like my friend Cindy. And it's like, I'm going to put that in my template. And so she kind of goes through, you go through life. And when you see a trait or a characteristic, a physical attribute, perhaps, of somebody or a way that someone behaves, maybe at a restaurant or whatever, and you're like, it's going on my template. It's going on my template. And I really like the concept of that because we're consciously acknowledging to ourselves what we want, what we're creating. It's almost like a mosaic. What are your thoughts?
Or like a vision board, I like the piece of art. I like the mosaic because we are creators. And this is just a form of creating. And a template is a beautiful, like you say, a nice way of seeing it and working with it. I see it as a timeline, a future timeline. And where do I want to be in a year from now? So I kind of put it on my timeline. It's kind of like building with Legos or whatever,
Mhm.
This is what I want to have in my future. And what do I want to get rid of? What do I want to change? And the new moon is happening on Thursday, a super new moon, and it's all about releasing. So, what do I want to add? But what do I want to release? What am I done with? And it has not been serving me. That's getting, old. And to really say, maybe it's procrastination. I'm talking about me, not you. I know you don't procrastinate, But what is it? What is it that I'm tired? The old stories that we've been telling that have been holding us back in a specific area of our life. What exactly is that? And gosh, are we done? If we are done, what is it that's been creating? Where are we on the hamster wheel of creating it over and over and over again every year? What are we ready to say? No, I'm done with that. So it's adding and releasing,
Mhm.
receiving and letting go.
I think you're right because we do perpetuate by, and again, back to the vocal, the power of the vocal, right? So
Mhm.
by speaking or retelling the story, oh, did you hear what so and so did, or whatever? It's retelling your story of who treated you in what way. Even me saying, oh, do you remember those moms that were, that fully bullied me during the, like, even me telling that story, it's going back in time in your little timeline and it's keeping me stuck. So it's like, actually, they were some of my, to use your phrase, some of my greatest teachers during the COVID years. They
Yeah.
really were. They helped me to see how strong I was and how calm, actually, surprisingly, how calm I could be in the face of attack, which was quite fascinating. So I feel like we either change the dialogue so that we're not retelling and therefore perpetuating the same story and really going nowhere, like not making progressional steps on this future timeline that we're trying to create.
Yeah, yeah. I think you're right. It's actually being conscious of the dialogue. What is the story that I've told for so many years? And is it true? And how do I know it's true? And what would I change if I wanted a different story? What would that story sound like? And I love the idea of looking at our biggest triggers as our biggest teachers. And what if our soul said, I want this person in my life and I want this person in my life so that I could learn those specific things in this lifetime? And that's our soul's journey. And so if we see it from a positive, higher perspective, it actually becomes kind of a gift.
I'm so curious to see what people are thinking. I would love you guys, if you haven't already, chime in with the comments. And maybe the question, if I would to pose one to you, is who has been one of your greatest teachers? So you can pop that in a comment. Or second question option, which is what story are you ready to let go of? Ready to release? What story? So you can even answer with a one liner or a two liner if you're willing to. And, it's kind of like I do this with my clients. I'm like, I am so done. And we do this with our arms. I am so done. In fact, I got a great message from Victoria Bahadur today. 2 years ago, we did my forest retreat together. She's a photographer. I'm a business coach. We came together. It was beautiful. And on that retreat, we actually did like a burning ceremony where you wrote down what are you done with? Like, what are you not taking in to the next year? So this was an end of the year event. So that is my question to you guys. What are you so done with and you're ready to lovingly let go of or ready to release it? You can let us know, or you can do your own ceremony. You can write it on paper and burn it safely. What ceremony do you do on the moon of releasing things?
Yeah, that's a perfect one. I'm a retreat leader as well. So I love a big fire and doing the whole ceremony of releasing. But there's never a more potent time than on a new moon. And so if you're watching this before or on the new moon, I highly recommend releasing and letting go. I have a couple meditations that I also take my clients through in how to release too. And so, yeah, you can do all kinds of things, burying things, burning things, cutting cords, and just seeing it gone, doing hocus pocus, abracadabra. Abracadabra is a great one for letting things go or creating something.
All right, before we go, we'll just wrap it up soon in this conscious conversation about consciously creating what we want. So right now it's November. I said it's October. It's the early November, and we're almost done with 2025. And so if someone really wants to consciously create a really different life, like I said, a lot of people are going through big stuff right now.
Mm.
Comment if you agree. I know so many people. Actually, if I think about some of my closest friends, it's like everyone's navigating something huge in their own way. And it's kind of hard, but also very exciting. So, if we want to consciously create a different, better future going forward, what else can we do to do that? What else can we use to make that, not make that happen? That's the wrong word, to assist.
Yeah. So the next, I'm sure anybody that follows energy, astrology, um, you're already aware of how potent the next 2 months are. November and December are all about endings and beginnings. It's all about,
Always, or especially now in this nine
oh,
year?
right now, more than it has been in thousands of years.
Woohoo.
This is a potent, potent 60 days that we're coming up against, or not against, we're getting to step into. And so it's going to be rocky for a lot of people. It's going to be uncomfortable for a lot of people because it's all about releasing things that are not serving us anymore and stepping into a whole new beginning. So the next 2 years, 3 years, who knows? We don't have that much of a magic ball or we can't see into the future too much. But like I say, if you follow energy and you follow astrology, you know, because it's so consistent. It is so consistent with everybody and what they're saying. So I would say get clear with what you're ready to let go of, do some ceremonies, and really see it done and act like it's done. Really become conscious of this new dance step that you're taking, this new belief, this new story. And then here's how you consciously create. First of all, get clear with what it is you do desire. How do I want to be different? Just like what you shared, Natalie, and what I shared. So get clear with what it is you desire. Second step, actively imagine living that desired life. And when I say actively, it's not just in your head, it's in your body. You literally can see and feel the movie playing in your mind and in your body. You hear the heat, you hear the sounds, you feel the feels, and you know what it feels like to actually be there. If it's a new relationship, imagine what it's like to wake up next to this person that you're absolutely in love with and looking into each other's eyes and just being in each other's presence and gratitude and joy. I mean, seriously, just be in that future today in your body. And then the third is expect this or something better with harm to none. This or something better is so important because you don't want to be attached to a specific form. Like you don't know what person you're going to be waking next
Mm.
to, but it's a feeling. And you'll know the form because of the feeling that you're going to have when you meet that person. But if you're too attached to a specific person, well, that's where disappointment and frustration gets triggered. It's a feeling. And so expect this feeling, this or something better with harm to none, and then get ready to receive. And like I say, you'll know it's right by how it feels.
Oh my goodness. If you guys aren't more excited about life than you were before this Zoom, meeting call, let me know. I love watching you, Cindy, and I love you just speaking straight from your heart. This or something better with harm to none. I love that because quite often people are like, yeah, don't be too rigid, kind of like surrender. They often will say surrender to the outcome or whatever, but you want to be clear on the outcome, but also this or something better. I love that.
It's a feeling.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
good. So good. Amazing.
It's fun.
All right. Well, you guys, if you want to find me, you can follow me Up Your Brave. I am on YouTube. I don't do a lot there, but please go and subscribe if you're on YouTube. Up Your Brave on YouTube, also Insta. And I just started a match me underscore matchmaking Instagram. Please follow that because I don't have very, very many followers. I just started it. So for matchmaking, you can check out matchme.co.nz. For everything else, upyourbrave.com. And Cindy, where can they find you once you're like back into the groove after,
Yeah.
recalibrating after your trip from America?
Well, I'm on cindypowersprosor.com, and I don't know if you're going to spell that or not, but
I'll put the link in the chat.
and then I also have a YouTube channel, and I record videos and conversations like this on that channel. Again, it's just getting going, but there's a lot of content on there that I think is worthy of watching.
Do you have meditations on there?
I do have meditations on there. And I have a lot of meditations, and it's interesting. A few on my website. Mostly I give them to my clients and when I lead retreats. And so I do them live, actually more than recording and selling. But
Mm-hmm.
I do have a few that are gifts that are on my my YouTube channel. So yes, you'll find meditations there.
Okay, well, I'm personally going to do that because I'm one of those people that's like, oh, not so much I really should. I don't really fall into the should zone too much about it, but I would like to genuinely do some more meditations. It's just not something that I actively am doing a lot of. So the future version of me, the template, does meditations regularly. So I'm going to check out yours.
Yeah. And one more thing that I just want to say, because I just did a workshop on intuition last week, and intuition is going to be your guiding light. I mean, that really is being able to feel into the right things, the right people, the right choices. Your body is such, your heart and your body is your North Star. And the way we get in touch and build that muscle, that intuitive muscle, is through meditation. It's through spending time in nature, being quiet, being still, and playing with it, having this whole idea of being a child and having fun with it like a toy. So I highly want to recommend that. You doesn't need to be on a cushion, with a mudra and a madra and doing it for an hour. Do it for 5 minutes, do it for 3 minutes, but just breathe and play with meditation and see what comes to you. It's really fun.
All right, we're going to wrap up with comment below with something that you want to have on your template, your future, this future you that you're calling in or creating, you're consciously creating, part of your lifestyle, part of your personality, what you do, what you no longer do. Comment below with one thing. Like I said, I'm going to do these meditations. And something else I just did that I'm pretty excited about is I just bought some linen sheets. I know because linen is the highest frequency fabric. So most people might know from Barbara O'Neill that you want to get rid of the synthetics, right? So you want to get rid of the polyester. She has a great acronym, which I can't remember. Polyester and all the other ones. And you want to bring in the wool, the cotton, and the linen. Although there's some rule about mixing. But anyway, I bought linen sheets, and that's one of the things. So I really want to. I already have a very high frequency, but I can, as I mentioned, drop down to other people's level. And I want to maintain a high frequency and be more healthy. So, yay for my linen sheets. Comment below. What are you doing to support yourself as well? Can't wait to come back and see the comments. Thank you, Cindy, for joining me for this conscious conversation.
Natalie, loved it.
Amazing. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. See ya.